Hey everyone, I'm Danny Lopez, your trusted realtor, here to clear up some confusion about the recent changes announced by NAR, the National Association of Realtors, after the recent $418 million settlement, and what that means to both homebuyers and sellers. Most of you have watched segments on your local news channels. I know I have. And I'm sorry to say I cringe at the message that's being delivered across most media outlets. Not that they're giving out wrong information, but rather incomplete information for sure. What most of these outlets are reporting is that home sellers are no longer responsible for paying the buyer side agent commission, and that home buyers are now responsible for paying that commission on their side. This has some home sellers celebrating, thinking they are now money ahead by not being obligated to cover the buyer side commission, and on the flip side, buyers are now concerned about having to pay additional fees that may put homeownership out of reach and no longer an option, which in turn is bad news for sellers because it reduces the pool of potential buyers for their home. So it's easy to understand the uncertainty this presents for both buyers and sellers. So let's take a deeper look. In the past, the seller would sit at the table with their listing agent and agree on a percentage amount to list and market their house for sale. Most saw this as a cost to sell a house paid entirely to the listing brokerage, but that wasn't necessarily the case. You see, the listing brokerage, as part of their marketing plan, would take part of that commission, usually half, and advertise that amount on our MLS or multiple listing service to the entire agent community as an enticement for fellow agents to bring their qualified, willing, and able buyers. And that is the basis for the lawsuit. The lawsuit claims that the real estate industry was engaging in price fixing by controlling what was being offered to buyer agents as a commission. Here are some new rules that have been imposed by the settlement and are now in place since August 1st. The new rules have now decoupled the commissions. We now have a listing broker and a buyer broker. And the commission is no longer a commission, it's compensation. The listing broker can now only, at the time of listing, negotiate the listing side compensation, not both sides as it's done in the past for decades. The seller still has the option to offer a buyer compensation, just like it has in the past, but it can no longer be advertised on our MLS, making it now a negotiated item between the seller and the buyer. Buyer brokers working with buyers will now be required to complete a buyer broker agreement with their buyers before showing them any homes. The broker buyer agreement contains a section where the buyers agree to pay the buyer broker for their services. And by the way, this buyer broker agreement is nothing new. I've been using it for over 20 years. A lot of agents hadn't used it because it wasn't required. For me, I've used it for several reasons. Number one, it allows me to explain how a buyer agent gets paid, which was by the seller. Number two, it's an exclusive employment agreement for a set period of time, usually 3 to 6 months, depending on the market. And number three, it's a commitment between the buyer and the agent, ensuring that the agent gets compensated for their time and efforts, which could be weeks, sometimes months. Buyers that are unfamiliar with the buyer-broker agreement because they've never seen or asked to complete one are apprehensive about committing to pay a buyer-broker fee. But keep in mind, the fee can still be paid by the seller just like it has in the past. The difference is that it will now be a negotiated item when you present an offer to purchase a home. For sellers, it's customary to interview multiple agents for the job of selling their home to ensure that they choose a qualified listing agent to sell their home. It will now be equally important for buyers to make sure they interview and hire a solid buyer broker that not only demonstrates area expertise, but understands these new rules and possesses strong negotiating skills. To summarize, the core elements of the model for buying and selling a home that have existed and worked for decades still remain. If you're selling a home, you can still offer to pay the buyer agent compensation just like before. It's simply another negotiated item. Offering a buyer broker compensation will continue to be an attractive option for sellers, and it allows them to tap into the MLS agent community and their qualified buyer pool. For buyers, the option to have the seller assist with their buyer broker compensation also remains. It will now simply be a negotiated item when submitting an offer to purchase a home. I like these changes because it promotes transparency, giving both sellers and buyers a clearer understanding of where the money is going and building trust in the real estate process, ensuring that everyone is on the same page. I hope this has brought some clarity to the recent changes. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave a comment below or click the link below to schedule a call directly. I'm here to help. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone you think might benefit from this information. And as always, when it comes to real estate, experience matters. Until next time.